Commandant Teste was a large seaplane tender of the French Navy built before World War II. She was designed to be as large as possible without counting against the Washington Treaty limits. During the Spanish Civil War, she protected neutral merchant shipping and played a limited role during World War II as she spent the early part of the war in North African waters or acting as an aviation transport between France and North Africa. She was slightly damaged during the British bombardment of the French fleet at Mers-el-Kayakut-Bir in July 1940. Commandant Teste was scuttled at Toulon when the Germans invaded Vichy France in November 1942, but was refloated after the war and considered for conversion to an escort training carrier. Neither proposal was accepted and she was sold for scrap in 1950. Design. After the completion of aircraft carrier Kayakut-Bir, the Marine Nationale desired another aviation vessel, but the lack of another hull that could cheaply be converted made another aircraft carrier too expensive. It settled for a seaplane carrier that could act as a mobile aviation base and support seaplanes for a specific attack. The ship was restricted to a maximum size of 10,000 t at standard displacement, which prevented her from counting against France's 60,000 long tons Washington Treaty carrier allotment. This also served to keep her costs relatively low. Description: Commandant Teste was 167 meters long overall. She had a maximum beam of 27 meters and a draft of 6.7 meters. She displaced 10,000 long tons at standard load, 11,500 t at normal load and 12,134 t at full load. Because of the ship's high profile, there were concerns about her stability in bad weather as she had a significant amount of weight mounted high in the ship, notably her catapults, cranes and anti-aircraft guns. To increase her stability, two lateral tanks were fitted with a pressurized butterfly valve connecting them so that water could flow between the tanks to counter her rolling motion. On trials in 1933, the system was judged successful as it dared and the ships rolled by 37 to 65%. However, maintenance of the system proved to be problematic as the tanks were difficult to access. Propulsion. Commandant Teste had a two-shaft unit machinery layout with alternating boiler and engine rooms. Her Schneider-Zoli direct-action geared steam turbines were designed for 23,230 shp. Four superheated Loire-Yarrow small tube boilers powered the turbines at a pressure of 20 kilograms per square centimeter at a temperature of 290 degrees Celsius. These were the first superheated boilers in the Marine Nationale and required some modifications after the ship's trials. The two in the forward boiler room were oil-fired, but the other two could use either fuel oil or coal. Commandant Teste had a design speed of 21 knots, but she exceeded 22 knots on trials on the 23rd of July 1933. 1,163 t of fuel oil was carried as well as 700 t of coal. This provided a range of 2,000 nm at 18 knots to 2,500 nm at 10 knots using only coal. Two 300 kilowatt turbo generators provided electricity at 235 volts. Three 150 kilowatts diesel generators were fitted to provide power while in harbor. Armament. Commandant Teste was originally going to carry a mixture of 138.6 mm or 155 mm anti-surface and 75 mm anti-aircraft guns, but this was changed before construction began to a homogeneous main battery of 12 100 mm 45 caliber dual-purpose guns on powered single mounts. 5 guns each were mounted on the fore and aft superstructures and 2 were mounted between the catapults. Their elevation limits were -10 degrees to +85 degrees. The rate of fire was 10 rounds per minute. They had a maximum range of about 15,000 meters with a 14.95 kilograms armor-piercing shell at a muzzle velocity of 755 meters per second. 280 rounds were provided for each gun, including 40 star shell rounds and 19 tracer rounds. 8 37mm 50 cal semi-automatic AA guns were carried by Commandant Teste. 2 each were fitted on the fore and aft superstructures and 4 on platforms around the single funnel. 4,000 rounds were carried, 500 rounds per gun. The guns could depress 15 degrees and elevate to 80 degrees. They fired 725 kilograms shells at a muzzle velocity of 810 meters per second. Their effective anti-aircraft ceiling was less than 5,000 meters. 6 twin 13.2 mm machine gun mounts were also fitted. 2 mounts on the bridge wings, 2 on the upper funnel platform, and 2 on the stern. The Hotchkiss guns had cyclic rate of fire of 450 rounds per minute, but the practical rate was between 200 and 250 rounds per minute to allow for reloading its 30-round magazines. They had a theoretical ceiling of 4,200 meters. 2 fire control directors were mounted to control the 100mm guns, one above the bridge and the other atop the rear superstructure. Each director was fitted with a 3 meters stereoscopic rangefinder. An upgrade to 5 meters rangefinders was planned to improve the director's performance against surface targets, but was never carried out. The midships 37mm anti-aircraft guns were controlled by a single 1-meter rangefinder, but nothing was provided for the fore and aft 37mm guns. Protection. Commandant Teste had a waterline armor belt with a maximum thickness of 5 centimeters abreast the machinery spaces and was 3.76 meters high. The ship was protected from axial fire at the waterline by partial transverse bulkheads 2 centimeters thick. The magazines were protected by 5 centimeters sides and 2 centimeters ends and roofs. The deck consisted of 2 layers of 1.2 centimeters plating which increased to 3 layers above the boilers. 2.6 centimeters of armor protected the steering gear. The sides of the conning tower were 8 centimeters thick, but its roof was 3 centimeters thick. Aircraft arrangements. Commandant Teste had a very large hangar amidships that was 3 decks high and measured approximately 80 meters times 26.5 meters. It was partitioned in 2 by a bulkhead that incorporated the exhaust uptakes for the funnel and the ventilation trunking for the machinery spaces. It could accommodate 10 large torpedo bombers with folding wings. 2 smaller aircraft with folding wings could be stowed in lieu of each torpedo bomber. 2 additional large aircraft and 4 smaller aircraft could be carried dismantled in crates in a hold below the hangar. The aircraft were moved on a system of wheeled trolleys running on deck oval rails that extended throughout each half hangar to the quarterdeck at the rear of the ship. The torpedo bombers would be moved to the quarterdeck where the wings would be extended and then they would be lowered into the water by the large crane at the very stern of the ship. The hangar was surmounted by 4 Penhoe compressed air catapults, each with a launch capacity of 2.5 t. The smaller fighter and reconnaissance seaplanes were lifted through large 15 meters times 7 meters hatches in the hangar roofs by one of the 4 cranes mounted at each corner of the hangar and mounted on the catapults. During trials in 1937, it took 3 hours to embark a disembarker group of 16 aircraft, 17 minutes to embark a single Gourdou Lézard GL-812 reconnaissance floatplane, and 7 minutes to launch a section of 4 floatplanes by catapult aircraft. Commandant Teste was designed to accommodate the naval version of the Farman F-60 Goliath torpedo bomber, but they were obsolete when she was commissioned in 1932. Biplane Levasseur. 14 torpedo bomber floatplanes were only briefly used as they proved to be too fragile for landing at sea. They were replaced by improved Levasseur. 15 biplanes from July–August 1934. The Latécoère Air 298 monoplane replaced the place. 15 in March to May 1939. The scouting squadron was initially equipped with fixed-wing Gourdou Lézard GL-810 floatplanes until the folding-wing Gourdou Lézard GL-811 arrived in October 1933. They were replaced in turn by the improved Gourdou Lézard GL-813 in early 1936. The larger Loire 130 flying boat replaced the GL-813 from April 1938. Although the catapults had to be modified to handle the greater weight, no fighter seaplanes were ever embarked on Commandant Teste, although the Loire 210 floatplane was designed for the role. However, it proved to be greatly outclassed by contemporary land-based fighters, and only 20 were built in 1939. Service history. Commandant Teste served with the Mediterranean Squadron upon commissioning in 1932. She was refitted between November 1935 and August 1936 when her 100mm guns were given gun shields. From September 1937, she was based at Oran to protect neutral shipping from commerce raiders during the Spanish Civil War. In February 1938, she was refitted in Toulon to upgrade her catapults and then served as an aviation transport between France and her colonies in North Africa. In August 1939, she embarked 6 Loire 130s and 8 Latécoère Air 298s and sailed for Oran, where she was when World War II began the next month. Commandant Teste remained in North African waters until December 1939, when she returned to Toulon and landed her aircraft. She served as an aircraft transport between French North Africa and metropolitan France for the first half of 1940. In late June 1940, she was transferred from the overcrowded anchorage at Oran to Mers el-Kayakut Bir. She was lightly damaged by shell splinters during the British attack on Mers el-Kayakut Bir on 3 July 1940, but suffered no casualties. She arrived at Toulon on 18 October, where she was subsequently disarmed. In June 1941, Commandant Teste was reactivated as a gun retraining ship. She was at Toulon when the Germans invaded Vichy, France, and was scuttled there on 27 November 1942 to avoid capture by the Germans. Refloated by the Italians on 1 May 1943, Commandant Teste was captured by the Germans in September 1943 and sunk again the following year by Allied bombs on 18–19 August 1944. Raised again in February 1945, she was still thought to be repairable and was considered for conversion as an escort training carrier. The proposals were eventually dropped and the ship was used as a storeship for U.S. built equipment until sold for scrap on 15 May 1950.